our public voting meeting, after our public hearing regarding the safety plan is ready to start. I believe we have a quorum, so Tricia, we're good, right?
Yes.
So we're recognize a quorum, and if I'm not mistaken, we're going to move right into exec session. So I'll look for a motion to do so for the proper reasons.
Okay, I make a motion that we move into executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation, contract negotiations, and the employment history of particular individuals.
Smart. Second by Sean, and Tricia, please call the roll.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Kelly Evans,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Elvin Harris,
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Patricia Wassler.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. So we're going to move into exec. Well, we do have a quorum, and we're back, and we will get started. It is 6 o'clock, and Lily's in the house, and Lily's back.
Hey, good to be back.
Absolutely.
We're good.
It's good to be anywhere, everywhere. There you go, Lily. You get applause just for showing up.
Hey.
Appreciate it. And appreciate that everything is going well. And Dr. Brown, we appreciate everything is going well, and we're going to school every day. We're going to work every day, and that's good. And so I am looking at any modifications to the agenda. Is there anything that we need to change?
One question, Bob, the conversation that we had, is there any change to the personnel report that we need to make, or just to highlight the change of start dates for the two positions?
No, Sean, we can either modify it, it was a duplication, so we can either modify it to table now, or just make a correction on the next board, whatever.
And so folks should know what we're talking about. Our last board meeting, we approved the addition of 2 HR admin assistants.
Right.
They're on the agenda again for this board meeting. It is not 2 additional meetings, it's just a different start date. And so we can fix it, we can modify it at the next board meeting just to make sure it's clear that we're not hiring 4 people, we're hiring 2 new people.
But it's going to stay on this personnel.
Or we can remove it, and it's already been approved, so we don't need to approve it again.
Correct.
Right.
So let's just remove it. So we're removing those 2 positions.
Okay. And you've noted which ones and et cetera, and I'll this modification to the small item in the agenda, and without objection, we will do that.
Yeah.
So nothing else, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So public comment period, and glad to hear from the public. And Tricia, I think would probably have to be someone online if there is. Maybe Steve Manley?
Yes.
Okay, we'll start with Steve from IPEI. Always happy to hear from IPEI.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity, Rob, to speak with you all this evening.
Literally frozen. I didn't. I was talking cold. I didn't know
That's great.
Tonight I speak to you as the Executive Director of IPEI, and I want to say thank you. Tonight, the Board of Education will be accepting $10,000 in funding from projects supported by IPEI grants during the 2020-2021 school year, which, due to the support and the diligence of the ICSD Business Office, Angela Jordan, Terry Nunez, and the retired staff member Debbie Reynolds, they identified unspent funds provided by IPEI and the Fine Arts Booster Group and worked with me to make those funds available to your schools, teachers, and staff during the current year. We're excited to see those projects continue forward and really appreciate Angela and her team's dedication in the business office to working with IPEI, an outside organization, and helping move dollars into our student experiences. 2 weeks ago, IPEI's volunteer committee met and reviewed and approved grant requests from 6 teachers at DeWitt Middle School, Bell Sherman Elementary School, Cayuga Heights Elementary, Boynton Middle School, and 2 teachers from Northeast Elementary School, and funded projects ranging from online electronic music development to external building murals. These approvals bring our support for projects and programs throughout the school district to more than $10,000 during this school year. Our affiliate, the Fine Arts Booster Group, FABG, has a grant application deadline of February 1st for teachers, staff, and schools to support arts and education related projects and programs. You can learn more or apply at fabgithica.org. IPEI is hosting one more round of grants during this school cycle. We have a deadline of March 16th for any teachers, staff, or school administrators looking for funding during this year's school year. We are also available and able, with the support of my volunteer board and other volunteers, to approve funding for projects beginning in the early fall of next year. So if you have an awesome idea or an innovative project for your school or your class that you would like to start in September when we return to our buildings, feel free to apply by our March 16th deadline, and I'll work with that amazing business office and their staff to get funding available for you during your return. We will also be opening a grant round for funding in August, like we did during this year. Finally, a thank you to all of you who donate to IPEI throughout the year. Some of you are listening now, and some of you are in our Board of Education room. You make IPEI's grants programs possible. It's individual gifts, participation in our fundraising events, like our spelling bees, rescheduled for March 5th at Liquid State Brewing Company from 6 to 8 p.m., May 14th at South Hill Cider in the afternoon, likely from 4 to 6 p.m., and participating in our second scavenger hunt happening outside downtown during the weekend of April 24th and 25th. We couldn't support the fantastic, innovative teachers, schools, and staff of the Ithaca City School District without the community support. So thank you to all of you who've made a gift, participated, or helped us make education great for our students in all 12 of our schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Board responses will follow in a few minutes, but thanks again, Steve. And Moira, I'm not sure beverages at Liquid State helps my spelling,
Yeah, I was wondering about that too.
but great events through IPEI, broadening out the spelling bee, which is one of the big fundraisers for IPEI. I say all that, just giving it a minute. Anyone else that wishes to speak? We're good, Tricia? Okay. Board responses.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, business office folks, for finding money. Come over to my house. Take a look at my books.
I'll also give thanks to IPEI, and I'll wait to give my full thanks once we talk about the consent agenda. There are other organizations also donating money to the district on this agenda. So thank you to our giving community.
I would just like to say, as a student in the district who has actually benefited immensely from the work that IPEI and Finance Booster Group has done in, a dozen different ways, through theater, through Code Red, through, many other things. that it's kind of essential work, and it's really what makes school, in a lot of cases, it's what makes school very fun and interesting and engaging for students. So I think, IPI, Finance Booster Group, all that, it's really essential work. So thank you, and thank you, Steve.
Well said, Andrew. E, you want to weigh in? Very good. Well said, Andrew, and I would only, again, reiterate what Steve said. There are funds out there waiting for a place to be spent, and really take the advantage and the opportunity to this spring and next fall. If you've got an idea, run it by the folks at IPI. There are retired teachers there, I know them personally, that just reviewed the projects. And to Andrew's point, many times these are really impactful, profound opportunities for a lot of kids in this district and the community to take advantage of. So thanks again, Steve. So those are kind of, Pat, Chris, you okay back there?
No, you guys said it all. We can't thank them enough for the work they do with working with the district to benefit the students and teachers of the district, and it's a very fruitful relationship.
Thanks, Chris. So we'll roll right to student reps, and let's go with Ithaca High, and then Alicia.
It has been quite a while since the last board meeting. Ithaca High School is doing well, and there are quite a few updates. The first semester of the school year is ending this month, and students are taking a greatly looked forward break of half days this week due to the canceled regions. Clubs are doing well, with new clubs like Cinema Club starting up, which Quebec is a part of, and Asian American and Allied Club, which I am the president of, is collaborating with Ithaca Murals to start a mural project by students at Ithaca High School to further representation and inclusivity. For sports this week, the boys wrestling and swimming team are holding their senior nights. The Tatler recently came out with their literacy issue showing the creative work of students at IHS, including their photography, music, writing, and more. The Tatler is also coming out with its February issue in the coming week, which we hope you all read. In terms of COVID, students appreciate that the district has invested in much-needed KN95 masks for the whole student body. Students are also utilizing the district-provided COVID testing that happens once a week.
The last few days, as everyone has probably noticed, have been really cold. Students have complained about walking to school in these temperatures, and many are wondering what the process is for deciding snow days. How does the district decide snow days? Who does the district decide them in conjunction with? How do snow days impact the student body? Furthermore, for cold days specifically, is there a threshold temperature that the district closes at?
As the temperatures have dropped significantly in the last month, there's also been a very clear heating problem that has risen at IHS. For the first few weeks of the month, classes felt like stuffy saunas as the heating was on at full blast and ventilation wasn't working properly. Teachers were forced to leave windows open while temperatures outside were in their 10s and 20s in order to keep classes at a comfortable temperature and have some ventilation. In the last week, some classes have stayed excruciatingly hot while others are now freezing cold. This obviously isn't ideal, especially during a pandemic that involves an airborne disease. Some teachers have also taken it upon themselves to increase the ventilation in their classrooms, including even building DIY ventilators with money out of their own pockets. And some teachers and even departments have also, from what I understand, have asked the school and district for funding for ventilators and other COVID safety measures for classrooms that were denied. Especially now that contact tracing has been seized, and it seems like the district policy is now sort of, just wear your masks. We feel it's incredibly important to support our teachers in making classrooms as COVID safe as possible by both addressing the heating and ventilation issues in the school building and also committing funding to use on extra ventilation for classrooms as the cold weather forces everyone to stay inside during all hours of the school day, creating an especially unsafe COVID environment. I hope that this new $10,000 of IPI money, as well as the many hundreds of thousands of dollars that are set aside in the budget for emergency spending might be used to support teachers and students directly in the classrooms, such as in this way.
And as a result of the pandemic, ICSD is facing, like all other schools in many districts across the country, is facing a nationwide teacher, bus driver, and nurse shortage. Many teachers recently have left our district for jobs in surrounding districts like Dryden, Lansing, and Newfield. It is imperative that ICSD do all it can to satisfy and retain current teachers while also attracting new teachers to come work in our district. What is ICSD currently doing to make sure that teachers, bus drivers, nurses, custodians, and other district employees feel satisfied and appreciated while working here? And what are we doing to attract possible future employees? It has also come to our attention that ICSD does not conduct exit interviews when teachers decide to move on from the district. And without exit interviews, how can ICSD know why teachers are leaving our district and what we could possibly do to prevent other teachers from leaving in the future? We as student reps strongly encourage that exit interviews be conducted in order to gain the information necessary to understand why teachers leave our district and what we can do for it.
Thanks, Alicia.
It is coming to the end of our marking period, or as we call it, our cycle, because we do not have grades at our school. That means that it is time for us to reflect on our, how would one say, work learning, our work process, our learning, just to reflect on our classes and our experiences with them and our work. So that actually ended yesterday. That ended yesterday. I personally have finished my email, but I know some of my friends have not, so that's kind of interesting. As well as the LAPS display we are putting on is in February, and it is Little Shop of Horrors, and it is starring Savannah Lee.
Yeah, doing kind of on the music theme. We had a music ASM, which was split into fourths, and 4 different bands performed in the whole school. We rotated the students, so each student could see every performer. It went incredibly well. It was great to see our music talent at our school. It was a good experience for everybody. We're also, because of our ASM process, our ASMs are a crucial part of our school. They're obviously required as our democracy credit. And we can do things with ASMs where it can be kind of more of a fun ASM, but also we cover serious issues that we've brought to this board in the past. And it's something that only LACS has, and it's really important, and it's kind of a key part of our democracy.
So the ASMs, ASM technically stands for all school meeting. But currently the way we've been doing it, we've been breaking the school into 4 groups. 1 large one in the gym, and then 3 smaller ones in the black box theater, the cafeteria, and the library. This is because the current numbers say that we can only have 120 or 175 people in the gym at a time. Although these numbers they're outdated. They were made with 6-foot distancing, and I think actually maybe it was 12-foot distancing. I don't really know, but I ran the numbers again today. And we got a maximum capacity with everyone staying 3 feet apart of 851 people in the gym total. So basically, what we are hoping to do is to take the ASMs and move them from being in the 4 rooms, which, as you can imagine, is not ideal for fostering a discussion with the whole school if you're splitting it up. We are hoping to move our ASMs into just being in the gym. So before the pandemic, of course, all the ASMs happened in the gym. The whole school would go in the gym for a period. We discussed these as a whole school, and now we have to break up into these rooms. So additionally, during the whole pandemic, and also especially during this last, wave of Omicron, we've been a very safe school. There have been no clusters identified at LACS. Since basically for the past month, we've had less than 30 student cases. And a lot of these have been, I mean, all of them have been outside of school as far as we know. And a lot of them have been over, over holidays, as you can imagine. So we are hoping to basically to have ASMs with the whole school in the gym. I think that was it. Yeah, we are looking for your approval, I think, but see, we actually don't really know if we need to ask you or if we can just go for it. So if we need approval, we're looking for it. If we don't, then we're gonna do it.
You're gonna ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Well, thanks. And board responses?
Well, I can begin quickly responding to LACS and ACMs. Having taught there before, I'm very much aware of the importance of all school meetings and what they would facilitate. So I would imagine Dr. Brown and his team will respond to that request, including with your principal as well. So that will be a follow-up that sort of is outside of board sponsor board control. To our IHS students, I'll say Dr. Brown has probably already had conversations with folks about the process for snow days and the temperature threshold. I'll let him speak to that. Some of the requests that folks are making are phenomenal. There are questions that are probably best done through our committee structure than school boards. So for example, at facilities, we would have an in-depth conversation about heating and cooling at any one of our buildings, including having the personnel there to respond to what's taking place and what's happening. So that may be a suggestion that we engage in some of the committee structure as well. I'm very much aware, and so it's all board members, that Ms. Snowman and other folks are producing DIY ventilators. We are also a part and very much informed. And I will say, particularly around sort of exit interviews, which is something the district does do, there could be another extended conversation at the HR committee as well about what do those look like, what's the process, what feedback do we get from doing exit interviews, things of that nature. So for additional information, we'll bring anything back. We'll talk as a board, we'll talk with Dr. Brown, and we'll bring any additional responses at our next board meeting to the questions that were posed here today as well. I'm sorry, Andrew, I saw your.
No, sorry, never mind. That's not hard.
Let me just piggyback on that. I too am pretty aware of the importance of all school meetings at LICS. When I was the liaison there, I attended a number of all school meetings. And actually, I was sent video by my daughter of the recent music all school meeting. So I've got some clips of that, and it looks like it was great. And then just to reiterate what Sean was saying, that a lot of the discussions of issues that have been raised are talked about extensively in our committee meetings. And so this entire year, the HR committee meetings has been getting updates and asking questions about teacher and staff vacancies, about our recruitment and our retention efforts. So, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of suggestions, and a lot of back and forth, which really can't happen at board meetings. So, and the committee meetings this year, they're all being held virtually. Particularly in, as I said, in HR, every single meeting has some discussion about the issues that you raised.
Awesome, thank you.
Woody?
A couple of questions. Andrew, can you tell us right now, you said the meetings are being split up into different locations to make them feasible. Are those sort of integrated by grade? How are you managing those right now?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad that you asked that question. Because one thing that is really kind of unique about LACS is, of course, we are a 6th through 12th grade school. So you've got 11-year-olds and you've got 18-year-olds in the same building. And that can get frustrating at times for the 18-year-olds.
I'll say for the 11-year-olds or
well, both. But it's a good opportunity because you can have these older students who've been at the school for a very long time, They very often older students are completely comfortable speaking up and standing up and speaking their mind in an ASM, and it's a very good kind of role model to set for the sixth graders. So one thing that is really very essential to us is not breaking up by grade level. So what we do is we have these things called family groups, which is essentially a group that is it's a homeroom, and it's kind of got some support elements in it.
It's a enhanced homeroom.
Yeah, it's an enhanced homeroom. And we organize the meetings by family groups. So we try to have in the gym, you have a bunch of family groups of all different grades and all from all different, rooms and areas. And then in the smaller rooms, we can fit 3 family groups. So we try to do a middle school family group, a high school family group, and then a mixed middle school and high school family group. Just to, to kind of get that grade level integration as much as possible.
Thanks. Appreciate it. And one more question for whoever. I didn't teach like Sean, but I spent my time there. Even spoke at some of the ASM, so familiar with the model. And I know it's had an ebb and flow in terms of efficiency, whether or not you guys are getting what you want. Right, so where are you now? I understand the musical one was great, but and don't feel you're talking out of turn. This is just a conversation. Are they going well at the moment when you have them?
They're going pretty successfully. It varies because we're doing in different family groups, because sometimes some family groups click and they have a conversation. For the smaller groups, the gym is pretty much always successful in whatever we do, because there's the most people, so there's the most engagement back and forth between people. There's the biggest conversations, the most universal opinions. The smaller rooms, it can be effective if the people know each other, or if the middle schoolers if they idolize the people that are in the grades above them. But there's definitely been cases of where if the middle schoolers don't care about the topic, then just a high school conversation. You can't get that variety with such a small group.
It's not a guarantee like there's in the gym.
Yeah. And that's kind of why there's that importance. But it has worked, kind of, but it's very much like a 50-50 if everybody fully understands the topic or fully really reaches in and understands what we're talking about. But it's always a guarantee in the gym that it's analyzed. That's
So I assume somebody's going to get back to them about whether or not they can reconvene in the big gym?
Yeah. Get out of here.
Thank
Talk about it. Chris, Pat, Kelly? Anyone?
Hi, I actually wanted to thank all of them for sharing. Moira and Sean did an excellent job just responding to some of the concerns. I had a question. I was actually going back and forth with Sean before we saw that Cayuga Heights was doing a mural, and I know we just mentioned the mural. What's the planning process with that? I kind of want to see how this evolves.
Yeah, thank you. So we actually just started to talk about it last week, last Tuesday during our meeting. So we had Caleb Thomas and May from Ithaca Murals come to our meeting to start the discussion. And we're planning to, I guess first, just officially ask for permission and funds from Ms. Shalulu. And then we're hoping to look around the school for a good place to put the mural and come up with ideas.
Thank you.
Anyone else out there? Chris got really big. Not hear anything? Okay. We do have committee reports for the first time in a little bit, so we can talk about a few other items once we get there. Dr. Brown is going to respond to a bunch of stuff. Well, you're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about, frankly, Dr. Brown. But we're going to do the consent agenda, and then we'll get to Dr. Brown and then a few things. And so just need a motion and we can talk about consent.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Thank you, Maura.
Second it, we need a second.
Thank you, E, definitely. Consent agenda is in front of you. There are a number of items, and anyone who wishes to speak to them, and I have a question for Amanda once they're all done.
I know, Sean.
Go ahead, Chris, sorry.
I just wanted to point out there's a few not unique things, but there's a resolution to approve tuition rates, and just a couple of, but there's also the resolution to certify the tax warrant as well. I know Sean wanted to speak to some of our incoming funds that some of our groups raised for us. I'll let you do that, Sean.
Yeah, I just wanted to again thank a number of our local organizations. IPEI continues to do amazing work. So does our Fine Arts Booster Group. We heard the way it has a direct impact on students. Folks may also see on our consent agenda a significant contribution from the Park Foundation to do an equitable and edible farm to table, including the construction of a pavilion for 3 seasons that also includes a kitchen. Do a farm to table project. That is another just phenomenal program that our elementary school students are really enjoying as well. So continued thanks to a community that continues to support education in various ways outside of low tax rate but high taxes. That's what we'll say. Speaking of taxes, of course, 2 quick questions. One is, I know we're setting non-resident tuition rates. Is that a legal mandate that we have to set those tuition rates just for reference?
Right, so those are actually, I think we take those from state education department, right? And then every year the board must act. We have board policy about accepting students that are not in district, right? Which actually prohibits students that are not in district. But for lots of reasons, right, you want to sort of get a sense of what what that would be, either for grant purposes, right? Like if we were to write those, it's a good reference point for us. During negotiations, we offer lots of our staff who do not live in district the ability to have students come here. And so that's always a good reference point for us as well. And then finally too, there used to be, and we haven't done this in a while, but there used to be a policy where if you own property in the district, but you lived outside of the district, you would pay the differential. And so that's another, a way that historically we might have used these numbers. And then finally too, just for registrar, right? Just some people do ask this, like just to sort of say like, well, what's the cost of going here? And so this is not reflective of the per pupil cost, but this is a state rate.
And I asked that question in large part because of our policy that we decided probably 7 or 8 years ago
Not
about,
quite that long.
maybe it was shorter than that, but it may even be a time to revisit that policy.
Right.
At that time, we thought it was equitable. If you did not live in the district, then you should not be able to pay money to attend the district because that would, in some regards, give preferential treatment to folks who could afford it. With the significant change in residential patterns in our community, it may be something for us to reconsider again at some point in time. So that's partly why I asked that question. And then my last question for the consent agenda today is, I know at least on West Hill where I live, there's been significant conversations about people not receiving their tax bills. And I know that it has nothing to do with us as a district.
Correct.
Because all we do is put out the warrant and then the rest is handled elsewhere. But I'm wondering if, as someone who's in that world, have you heard anything about the delay for people receiving their tax bills?
So school tax bills, I cannot speak to city, county, I cannot speak to that. School tax bills, these were mailed out in this late summer, right?
Yeah.
So like,
September.
September,
That's
right?
That's right.
I still consider late summer, September, and if it got hang on to it.
September 21st.
There we go, Rob, there we go. So, so we do get an occasional call saying that I did not receive my bill. Oftentimes it's when someone maybe is paying it through their bank, they didn't recognize that it came through, they weren't looking for it, or they moved. We really don't have in this office many complaints about the receipt of bills. We also too, through the newspaper and through many media outlets, the tax bills for schools specifically, and again, I can't speak for city and county, but I believe it's the same. You can actually go online and print those, you can see those, you can see prior years. It's called taxlookup.net. You can search other properties, you can search people by name, so you can actually see your own tax bill and others. So, and at any time, you can always call the business office, because we do taxes too. So, you can call us, and we have, a person that will be answering the phone calls right there at the desk to help you.
Well, actually, Sean, so I too live on West Hill, but I don't think it's exclusive to
No,
West
it's
Hill.
not.
But anyway, through a friend who was wondering where his tax bill was, he contacted the city, he contacted the county, I guess. And they said they'd had a problem with printing their tax bills. I have received mine. I received it several days ago. That person also said, yes, you can go online, you can't, and you can look it up. If you pay online, you're charged a fee. So that's where things stand.
Sure. Appreciate it, thank you. Just want to touch base on, the item 6.9, that's the resolution to certify the return on the tax warrant. Now, at our last meeting, last week, we had resolutions regarding the tax warrant. Is this different than that?
No, this is, so we reviewed this at, actually, Tricia. That's a question for Tricia.
Well, we voted,
We did vote on the tax warrant at the meeting last
the
week.
special voting meeting when it was
Correct.
prepared.
Oh.
Right.
So,
So this
we
is
did review this last week. If we would like to consider this a review of what happened at the Tuesday official board meeting between finance and facilities. Thank you, Rob, for catching that. I didn't even look at the consent in that manner. So this is redundant. So this action has already happened.
Okay, so Sean, do we vote on it again, or do we pull it?
I suggest that we pull it if it's already been voted, so there's no confusion.
Correct.
And all we're doing now is signing the actual text.
That's right. So there should be in the folder, every single member of the board signs it. I sign it as the tax collector.
It's right here.
And so perhaps that led to the confusion as well. My apologies for not being, editing that out.
It rang a bell, Amanda, so that's, this gives all board members a chance to sign something, and it's just me. So I'm really, you are signed, well, you get to do that, that's great.
That's right.
So we will, just have, an addendum to the, consent agenda that we're going to pull item 6.9. And without dissent and we're going to do that. So any other questions regarding the consent? Just with that one
Sean, were you
modification?
gonna mention some other monies that have come to us?
No, the money that I saw was from IPEI, Fine Arts Boosters, and the Park Foundation.
Okay.
On this
Right,
agenda.
but, the Park Foundation,
Yep.
is giving us money for
Yes, they are.
equitable, and did you just mention that?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Rang a bell.
Yeah, so it's nice that we're paying attention to the meetings, too, right here, but that's okay. All right, so Tricia, if you could call the roll and we'll move on.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Kelly Evans,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris,
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Patricia Wasley.
Yes.
Thank
Those
you.
of us who weren't here to sign, should we just stop by the board office?
That would be great.
I'll come by tomorrow.
Perfect. Board members should sign, that's for sure. And Dr. Brown?
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Ainsley. Two quick reminders, announcements, and then some information. First, a reminder that we are conducting community conversations. We've been at BJM, DeWitt, Caroline. They're open for everyone, but these are the places we've been hosting them so far. Tomorrow night, Thursday night, we're at Cuba Heights, and we have a couple more scheduled. We'll continue to put those out on our website and other places. But we just are welcoming folks to an in-person gathering and conversation with me, members of the executive team, on our Learning Forward initiative and any other items that people have on their hearts and minds. It was time for us to be back out in person, in buildings, to have conversations that were not on Zoom. And folks who are showing up appreciate that opportunity to engage with us. So anything you can do to help us get the word out about that will be great. Next week is Black Lives Matter in Schools Week, which is a continuation of our efforts in our school district to understand, affirm, and social action. So there is a flyer and a website that reveals all of the different activities that will be taking place next week. We would love anyone's and everyone's support and help getting the word out and sharing information about it. Yes.
I just wanted to say that LACS is holding an ASM next week. That is about ELM school week. And we are having some singers come in, and it's going to be an amazing time. So I just wanted to share that.
Appreciate it. I would say we all should feel privileged and honored to be in a community where we can have this week, in addition to everything else we do, happen. Because I've got many calls today, and some folks were in my office when I got the call from superintendents and others who wish to do what we're doing next week and and don't feel they have the safe enough space to do so. So again, thank you to the students who've been a part of leading it, and for the many, many educators who are not only doing it next week, but having these conversations every day in our school. Thank you. And then it seems like every year around this time we have this conversation about snow day and cold days. So I'm hoping that folks can get the word out. Please share what I'm about to say right now to anyone and everyone you can. And I'm just so happy. I've been yearning for the time when decisions about snow days and cold days were the most controversial things I did. All right. I love that this is now the decision that I might be able to talk about and how we do it, why we do it, etc. Yes, we are up early, almost every day during the winter, making decisions, assessing things. We're in collaboration with the local transportation departments, the law enforcement agencies, and our maintainers who are cleaning sidewalks and parking lots almost every single day, making decisions about whether or not we can open up on time or open up at all. So the conversation starts around 3:30, 4 a.m. And we're out in the elements during that time, making decisions. So there are multiple folks who are providing feedback and information to me who ultimately have to make the decision. And I do recognize I am the most cyberbullied person in Central New York during those days, all right? I must also note that those the emails that came in, I think I was up to 750 emails from young people. And next time when you do this, Adam and others, make sure you shift the languages. Like I was reading the same email over and over again, all right? So change a sentence or a couple of words to make it better for me to read at 4 a.m., all right? I would just appreciate a few different sentences from every single person, because you all have such great different personalities. You're unique. And I want to be able to speak to each one of you in a different way, all right?
Have you prepared for a lot more swear words in that case?
Anything. I'm telling you, when the brother's up at 4 a.m., I do want to read something cool from you. All right? Because over my 11 years, things have shifted. We have gone from everyone expecting me to get up at 5 a.m. and 5:30 to make the call. So now folks want us to make that call 2 or 3 days early, all right? And particularly the night before. So I recognize that shift in our community's expectation around me being able to predict better than the weather forecasters what's going to happen the next day, all right? Please know, this is how I make it. This is the little spoiler alert. If there is not a warning from the National Weather Service, warning, winter storm warning, winter chill warning, we ain't making a decision until 5:30 the next day, all right? I appreciate all the emails and the tweets and the direct messages, but it's going to happen at 5:30. If there is a warning, it's going to happen the night before. That is a shift in my thinking over the years, because frankly, I've been cyberbullied into doing so. That is the protocol. There is no policy. We don't want a policy because this is very arbitrary. But it is, I'm giving you my thinking. There is nothing I'm hiding from you right now. If it's an advisory, it's going to be at 5:30. If it's a warning, it's going to be the night before. And let's be absolutely clear. This decision is so hard. Yes, if to save hair and some of my height, I would just have every day off because, all right? Because no one complains when we call the day off. These folks who are struggling on those days off aren't sending me emails. So while I know, because I'm out in the mornings too at 4 a.m. walking, it is cold. And that discomfort in no way is the type of discomfort that families have who can't go to work the next day and are losing money. Because when I close schools here, not only are folks in our school community not working and not getting paid on that day, there are other places, daycare centers, organizations, businesses that wait for our call before making decisions about whether they open their doors or not to. And in those cases, those families are not getting paid. In many cases, those families don't have daycare. And oftentimes, those families and young people in our schools aren't eating. So please know the gravity of a decision when we say we're not going to come on time or not come at all. And how that is connected to the discomfort some of us may feel about walking in the snow or being a little cold. And I also recognize that we don't want people sitting outside when it's super cold either. So all of these things go into the decision. And it's one that's complex. It has evolved over time, but you now know how I make it. Thank y'all for asking. Giving us a chance to do it yet again. Thank you for the opportunity to say anything.
At least you have some passion about the subject. All right.
It feels good to talk about it.
Glad you got it off. I don't know, you can get it off your chest, but go ahead.
Out of context, I greatly appreciate the balancing between the families who would like us to have the day off and need us at the day off, that part I get, and the impact it has on other families. Mine being one, but my extended family being folks who are hourly wage earners who are not able to get paid on those days. So that balance, I think, is important for us to continue to recognize. And I think it's important for our community, in particular some of the students, to realize that depending on how many days we go in, you don't get that day off. It just comes back around to you later on, right? So you don't get a full week off, you get 4 days off because we're mandated by law to have a certain number of instructional days. So it is a difficult decision. And I understand as well, folks are cold, right? So we're trying to balance all these things. But I really appreciate the way in which you explained that. That was very helpful. Appreciate that.
Dr. Brown, very good. And Amanda, we're going to keep rolling. We're going to talk about all the things that make this district run, meaning budget and finances, and we're in budget season. Well, we're always in budget season.
We're always in budget season.
But it is after the first of the year, and so.
And I do get to work every day with the amazing people that Steve Manley spoke about, and I love that even in retirement, business office staff still get shout outs. They are absolutely an incredible team, and I just want to say at any time, students, if you want the business office to come out and answer questions, whether it be about capital project, the budget, facilities, taxes, anything, because it's super exciting. We are so excited to talk about it. So, please know, so we're there. So these are just preliminary factors. This will be a shorter presentation, and as you know, they do get a little longer the closer we get to our time when we go to the vote and when the board is approving the budget. So Tricia, if you don't mind going to the second slide. This is preliminarily a draft budget calendar. We're actually not going to adopt this tonight. We might adopt it at the next meeting. We did review some of this in finance. We are still working out some of the details after April 12th around when do we want to host the budget hearing? When, do we want to, produce our materials? So I kind of stopped this at April 12th because that is pretty predictable, right? And as you're going to see, and Chris Malcolm, who's the chair of the Finance Committee, we talked about this. We know that the Finance Committee, as all of the board has said, is really a wonderful opportunity for us to not only have presentations and learn and engage, but also to have dialogue and ask questions, right? So you're going to see the Finance Committee meetings are going to be very, very engaging. You're going to have directors, the BOCES, coming in and speaking to the board and any community members. They are open meetings that want to join and really kind of get into the weeds of their program, talk about not only what they need to continue to fund, but any innovations or new things that they need to fund. And they're going to be proposing some of those for the board to be able to ask questions. And then that goes into a large document, hundreds of pages. We then review it, through finance, through the executive team, with other budget stakeholders, and that's how we start to trim down what our actual budget is that we would present with Dr. Brown to the board to move forward to the voting public. So this gives you a little sense of sort of the time that we have. That April 12th date is the date on the calendar of the last board meeting that is currently on the calendar that we would, by law, be able to approve the budget. We do have more time than that if we choose to call an additional board meeting, if we need more time for dialogue and discussion, or have a board meeting in between committees. And that goes up through, I think, the 23rd we have of April to be able to actually have the board adopt a budget, which would be the budget that would go out to the voters in May. The vote this year is May 17th, 2022. Typically on that ballot, it is the budget itself. Then there's always a Proposition 2, which is expending from the capital reserve money that we have. And then this year we'll also have Proposition 3, which is creating a new capital reserve, because we've run our course with the current capital reserve that we have. So those are all sorts of things that you can see there that will be happening. Tricia, the next slide. Just some, again, these are moment in times that I keep coming to you. Every time we come, if you look for continuity from one presentation to the next, sometimes there are things that will remain. Many times though, we're getting new information and incorporating that information into each one of the budget presentations as we move forward. So some of the things that we know at this moment in time, we did get preliminary state aid runs from the governor's office. And so those are not final. The final state aid runs come in April, but these are a really good projection tool for us to utilize for our revenue. And that's one part of the revenue that we bring in. We do know that that state aid run includes things like services aids, which are the BOCES aid and transportation aid. Those two specifically, and building aid, need a lot of work to ensure that what is on the aid run that the governor gives us and what actually our real behaviors are based on either changes in program or initiatives, that those match. And so we do try to work on those numbers to get those as accurate as possible in the revenue projection. Aid runs are based on a certain time when a report is submitted, and it may not always be accurate in the day that you're doing the budget planning. The next one up on the top right corner, the federal aid. If you remember the past couple of years, the state aid runs have included a lot of federal aid funding. It got really confusing. And in fact, that's why I put the note on the bottom right. They actually said that federal aid was replacing STAR in one year. There was a pandemic adjustment that whatever aid we got, it reduced our state aid amount. When you look at the runs this year, there is no commentary on federal money because the federal money is no longer playing a role in general fund, which is what we take to the voters, right? And what the state aid is part of the revenue for. The general fund actually is not allowed to host that money or allocate that money. That money is supposed to be used for one-time expenditures, and we are going to put it into the special aid fund. Eldred every year talks to us about reminding us about special aid funds, that all of the title monies, any of the grants that we might get, right? And so we'll try to do a really good job of making sure that we update people about the special aid fund, but not confusing it with the general fund. So we're going to try to be really, clear. Maybe I change the background color right when we do it so that people know, but we'll have a plan for that as well, because we do want to continue to track all of that federal funding that is specific to COVID. We did use that this year in the general fund in the current fiscal year that we're in, because we thought that we were able to put it in the general fund, and we have used different things that will need to be sustained. So we're going to also try, when we deliver the expenditure report to you, to show you the things that need to be continued in the general fund that need the dollars from either taxes or state aid, and then those that would be one-time funds that we would put in special aid. So that'll be a little bit of extra work this year, and we'll try to make that as clear as possible. Tricia, the next slide, please. So this is the state aid run report for this moment in time, and I think that for those of you that are in the room, the box that is covered up at the bottom, the difference from the fiscal year 23. So this is this year that we're moving forward. We're planning for this budget cycle. This is the year that we're living in. This box says about $46,000. So there was a lot of media coverage of increases from the governor's budget for foundation aid.
Yeah.
And you'll see the increase to foundation aid is 3%. all of this other stuff was happening during a pandemic. So lots of things that we were able to get aided didn't happen. And there are 3-year averages, or they're based on your actual experiences. And so therefore, that's why you're seeing many of the services aid that we get have decreased. So our bottom line, in terms of the total revenue that we're bringing into the district, is actually only up by $46,000. That is not keeping up with any kind of cost of living, inflation. So we're going to have an interesting conversation about revenue to come. And again, remember that this is the first iteration of the state aid runs. There will be the final aid runs in April, so we'll know more then. But these will be our estimates, and we'll be working on those service aids, as I said.
And Amanda, you know, it really was not expected that we would receive a big slug of foundation aid. We're right in that spot where a large majority of our funding comes from local taxpayer, not state aid.
That's right.
Plus, we're not considered a really high needs district as far as final the foundation aid. So, but it would have been, it was pretty underwhelming, the numbers once we
It was
saw
one of those like, oh wow, 3%, then you got to the bottom and it's like the big wah wah, right? You know, I mean, it's just what it is. Yes.
So
we'll manage it. This is what we do. We try to come up with
and we'll just see how things
Yep.
come together.
That's right. So Tricia, before you go to the next slide, so state aid, as Rob was saying, is a portion of the revenue that we bring in, right? The largest portion of revenue was the dialogue that we had about our tax levy, right? We levy taxes to the community. We have a very low tax rate, which is what you pay. And then because there are so many shoulders to carry that tax rate, we are able to bring in a really wonderful, healthy levy that represents how much we value education in our community. So the levy will be something that we will be calculating. There is a tax cap calculation. It's become really interesting and almost, it's a tool. And since 2019, it will be just a tool. There's actually no ramifications or repercussions for school districts to stay within it because there's no more rebate checks that are withheld if you don't, right? You still do require a supermajority. So that is the one thing, right? Our community, we always have, approval rates very high. So I just want to put that out there for folks.
So that's new.
That is from 2019. The rebates are gone. Yep. And so like last year, we saw a lot of districts go over the cap, even in our region, because it's sort of like a guidance tool for districts to use. But again, if you're outpacing, right, what you need to run your district and the federal aid goes away, people have been looking at that. We may have to this year. So, we can talk more about that in the future.
Yeah, I was at this table. My first year, we were here thinking about what we would do with the funding cliff. On the end of the last time, we got a big influx of federal aid. And the result of that funding cliff looked like us going over the tax cap and significant reductions to staff. We are coming up on that funding cliff in another year or two. So we will have to have decisions about, we will have to have conversations about what we need to do to avoid, hopefully, the kind of staffing reductions that we experienced the last time. And at the time when we went over the cap, we had ramifications as far as the consequences for going over said cap.
And we have
the
so many
ability
tools.
ability to compensate all our staff, teachers, custodians, bus drivers in the way that they need to be compensated in order to pay higher cost of living.
That's right. And again, being mindful of what the impact is to the taxpayer.
Exactly.
We have done an exceptional job of minding both the levy and the rate. And that will never stop for us. I mean, we're very, very proud of that work that we've been doing. And so again, in future meetings, as we talk about other revenue sources that will come up, and we can analyze it all different ways, and we have a lot of forecasting tools as well that we can use to be able to support the work that we do on that revenue. And remember, revenue drives the expenses, right? So you have to have a balanced budget. And so one of the things that we use to balance our budget is fund balance. And Tricia, if you can go to the next slide. This is not revenue. These are reserve accounts and also savings accounts without strings attached, right? So when you end the year and you bring in more money than you spend, you are able to actually either allocate or appropriate some savings accounts to balance your budget, or you're able to put it into a savings account, right, for very particular purposes, right, or for things that are yet to be determined. So an unappropriated fund balance has like no strings attached in the sense that it's not for a particular spending purpose. Whereas a reserve account, like a capital reserve, we establish that every couple of years. We fund it to a certain amount, and then we draw from it with voter approval to purchase our buses, to do small capital project work that maybe we need to do quicker than a state education process, right, going through that. We use things like a tax certiorari is like for folks that were charged a certain tax or were assessed at a certain value. They went and fought that and said, that's not fair, I want it to be lowered. They lowered, we have to pay them back the taxes that they paid. It's very specific. Health insurance reserve is specifically for that. We are self-insured, we need to be able to have a reserve that's available. So when you look at this savings account, many of these items cannot be used to balance the budget, right? But some of them, these especially, are the ones that we would be looking to be able to fill that gap if we're finding that with our tax levy and our state aid, if we're missing the mark for what we want to be as a district and what we want to fund, we would use that savings account to fill that gap. So I always show this during revenue presentations because it is part of the picture and it gives us a cushion, but it is not a revenue stream, right? It gives us sort of a bit of a peace of mind to be able to know what we can afford.
You can only spend it once.
You can spend it once, and if you don't replenish it, right, that is gone. It is gone, right? So with that, there's just one more slide, and it's essentially just next steps. And the board knows this. We say this every single year because we want to remind everybody that there is so much analysis and connection and collaboration in this process. We do not do this in a room. We talk about budget at least twice a week at our meetings that we have as an executive team. We actually have meetings with every single stakeholder that is a budget developer, from a director like Carrie in the room to principals. We talk about it at finance committee. We hold PTA meetings. Typically I don't see my family because, we're out seeing other people's families that are part of our district. And so it's really important times for us to be really engaging and transparent and answer questions as honestly as possible. A budget is about what we think we're going to need to run the district. It is not an expenditure report, right? It is a moment in time study of what we think we're going to need to be able to move this district forward into 2013 with the factors that we can anticipate, right? And make sure that we have enough funding available to do the innovation and all the work that we need to do. So that's where we are today, end of January. Many, many more things to come. And I'll be probably a frequent flyer at the meetings. So, I hope you like my voice, because this is it, everybody. But I always bring collaborators too. We'll bring exec team members.
You're always very clear and clear. So even through a mask.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you. I practice.
Yeah, exactly. Questions for Amanda?
I have one, and it's not about the budget, but while you're in the hot seat, Amanda.
Sure.
First of all, I'm gonna bottle your energy because I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm at the feel like you've been hit by a bus hour and you're bouncing off the walls, and I love it.
Thanks, Kelly. And that's decaf tea. I know, right? It's amazing.
Yeah. Whatever it is, I want it. But I do have a question because I'm just going through what the public comments were, and while I have you there and Dr. Brown, can we just address to the students their question about the HVAC and heating? While I agree that they can go to facilities meetings, they came to us with this question, and I don't think we really answered it. As to where we are on the problems that we are having with the classrooms getting so hot or so cold. Could either of you address that before you part ways with us?
You can, I was going to ask to talk about that when the facilities update, but.
Facilities update, sure,
No,
right?
but, you should just go ahead.
Sure, okay, so,
We can talk about it.
that's right, so
We'll do
there's.
facilities update now, so there you go.
Right, so heating, right, so there, the heating element, and I wanna make sure that Dan Bryman also gets his time to shine here because he's been doing a lot of this. So Dan does the everyday operations and I do more of the future planning with the capital project. But we'll play off each other because we love to do this so well, so.
Well, can I,
Yeah, please.
just a little context. We've had issues with Washington DeWitt for years.
Oh
And
my
so,
goodness, yes.
right now, as part of the facilities referendum, it's taken about 18 months to plan and devise a system to fix it. So right now, the control systems at Boynton and DeWitt are being fixed, started over December, right? So they're going through both those buildings and redoing the total systems and allowing our new heating systems to speak digitally with the control systems.
That's
so
right.
It was digital and analog trying to mix together too.
Right, I always, it's like trying to get 5G with a dial-up modem. Is that a good way to put it, everybody? Okay, so that's what's happening, right?
So Boynton and DeWitt
don't
are a huge issue, and we've known for a long time there's issues at the high school. So part of our next planning is to, yes, bring in, we're talking heat, but air conditioning to G&H and you know, lake source cooling. So we're planning that, and also, as we did with Boynton and DeWitt, all the controls have to be updated.
That's
Full
correct.
controls to try to make sure that in the future, once we go through the process and get that done through state ed and spend $2.5 million, about $2.5 million for Boynton and DeWitt. So another 2.5 maybe, well, who knows, but it's a big chunk of money, but we have to go through state ed to do that. So everything that we're doing now is try to mitigate and get us to that point.
That's right.
But go ahead.
So I think is it okay, can I just do my simplistic and then you can do more technical? So for me, what I learned, right, is that the heating system is exactly that. There's a fault in the system in terms of the controls and what the system actually does. And those have to be manually, somebody has to go in and manually fix that right now until we get a better system, which we have in the queue to take care of for the long term. When that happens and things, when it doesn't speak to itself and the systems become closed, that's when all of that heat generates, because you're not able to actually have cooled air come through that, which is important, right? That is separate from the ventilation system, which has the MERV 13 filters, which the whole goal of that is to bring in as much fresh air as possible and circulate outside air into the building. There are requirements for ventilation for school districts, right? In terms of heating and temperature, there are thresholds for how cold it can be, but not for how hot it can be, and that doesn't make it right? So ventilation, MERV 13s, tons of air coming in, fresh air, that's a system that is generating and working, right? Then there is the heating system that we know we have issues with. There is confusion sometimes because that heating system, they talk about the airlines and that, those are tiny little straw-sized airlines that because of age have holes in them, and we're working on those things, right? Is that okay? It's still not technical.
No.
Okay.
So don't get in the way, Dan, just let
No, I know, I'm on a roll, I'm on a roll,
I
Kelly,
don't
I'm
wanna
on a
stop,
roll.
I don't wanna stop it.
Go ahead.
I will.
Can you stop?
I can. That's funny. So we've been working on this for the past week and a half. We had an air compressor, I'll get into the details. We had an air compressor that had some issues. We rebuilt the air compressor. We've also identified a number of leaks in the pneumatic air system. We fixed those leaks, and the air compressor in combination with the pneumatic system, the valves weren't closing properly, and that's why we saw really hot temperatures and really cold temperatures. Now the way that, and we're getting close to fixing this complete issue, because we've also added some transducers and found some oil in the lines as well. While we're fixing it, we're sending technicians to rooms to hand dampen the systems in each of the classrooms to get it to the level that the teachers feel comfortable about. And today, I really feel like we're, today we only received a complaint about one classroom in G&H, and we're really close to resolving the entire heating and cooling issue in G&H once all the transducers are replaced and the leaks are found.
In the short term.
In the short
That's
term,
short
yes, that's a short-term fix.
Pneumatic systems, they're air-driven, that's 1940s technology basically that was still used, and so that's all going away. It'll all be digital. But sorry, that's a question.
Will the same system be effective in ICS?
We have the same problems.
Yeah, and some of our rooms still don't have AC, and like most of our heating rooms don't either are way too high or way too cold.
We can definitely take a look, yeah.
So
We definitely are happy to come out and take a look at your classrooms and look at the temperature.
Sorry, it's not, and you're gonna have a lot of work done.
This summer.
Well, if we can get it to bid on time, because we are so delayed in state ed, we are hoping to get a bunch of stuff done this summer. But we are like tied up in state education department. If we can get it done this summer, unfortunately, HVAC is not part of that work for LACS. And it is too late now to be able to incorporate something of that magnitude in it, but the capital project is $120 million. So it's not like something like that couldn't be added into a future phase and take a look. I think our goal is to try to tackle this at every single building, but it does take time and it takes a ton of money, right? And so that's the thing that we have to do. But
Boynton and DeWitt was not in the original scope.
it wasn't.
And frankly, the HVAC and his dice was not the original scope.
That's right.
It really was general what we need in these buildings. And so LACS, we need to come up with solutions there.
Absolutely.
And I will say, if there's, I mean, I know, I want to pull out all the, HVAC systems and replace them about as much as anybody, which is not very much. If there's some kind of, like quick fix that we can do to at least make it just stop constantly pumping out heat, burning up energy, 24 hours of every single day.
Right.
We're not opposed to that. We're very big on quick fixes.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, you're marrying West Hill Elementary School, which I went to kindergarten there, with obviously modern additions to it. And so it's marrying old and new systems is always
right. Please know it's not that it's not important. It's just that I think the entryway, the safe and secure entryway got prioritized over HVAC at LACS. It's not that it wasn't important. It's just that there was a different priority in terms of the project. Short-term fixes that we can do.
We're happy to look at the classrooms and see what can be done.
That would be
short-term fix.
That would be very
No
ideal.
problem.
Yeah.
So beyond, these systemic problems and solutions, a lot of students are also wondering what can we do that is, I guess, maybe more of like a just not like a big systemic fix, things like in class ventilators, heaters, fans, things like that, that teachers and students can use to their needs without having to go, meddle with the entire school's heating system. And we feel that it's really unfair that teachers have to dig out from their own pockets to provide that for their students and for themselves to be able to work in a comfortable environment. So I guess we're just wondering, first of all, what is the process to get that money so that teachers can use that and get these things for their classrooms, and also, I guess, how much money is there for those purposes available?
So, I'll start a little bit, right? So number one, right, we've done this, we have been dealing with COVID now since March 13th, 2020, right? Our first and foremost thing was changing out all the ventilation, making sure that the units had the capacity to manage air filtration through the premier MERV 13 filters, right? And that is the best system. You're not going to find any other district that did that. And so what we did was we did an overhaul whole school, because to LACS's point, we we also have to be stewards of our environment. It's not a fiscal issue, it's our environment, right? So all of these little units, especially like little personal HEPA filters, there's a lot of studies out there that Train, who is our group that actually is like our HVAC and ventilation consultants, talk about the release of ozone for those, the contamination of the filters and how often those have to be changed. Districts that use them oftentimes will wear full, like they'll have their facilities person wear like full like gear to change those filters, right, in these units. Plus a lot of the units that are available on the market are either an absolute fortune and way too loud when you put it in the space for the square footage. So when you ask for them and you get them, teachers actually are like, wait a minute, I didn't realize it was so loud. The ones that are on like state contract, they're so small, you'd need 4 or 5 of those in a classroom. And so now you're concentrating biohazard and ozone in these classrooms, plus all the energy usage you have. What are the rules around those? Do you turn them off every day? Do you turn them on? You have to turn them on like 2 hours before you get to class. No teacher's gonna wanna come in early to do that, and we don't have the facilities department to be able to do that. And then finally, you know, again, a lot of folks, it is about, we look at like box fans, heaters, things like that. We would much rather deal with it systematically and get everybody to a place of comfort and really like feeling a sense of pride in the building versus like these Band-Aid approaches, right? And so MER 13s, purchasing of masks, like there's so many things, washing our hands, social distancing. I mean, we are really trying to do strategies systemically versus one by one by one. And so, you know, the department budgets or budgets for a school district, you know, if we want that money to go toward teaching and learning for young people and engagement, right? And really around curriculum and instruction and building programs that we are proud of. And we will utilize capital and facilities budgets to do all the rest of the stuff to make sure we have safe spaces. So that's the piece.
It's always hard to follow Amanda.
I'm sorry.
But I'm gonna try it again. So, I mean, first of all, if we're talking about the portable devices, New York State Department of Health is not recommending them in, they're only recommending them in areas without natural mechanical ventilation. And all of our classrooms have this ventilation, as well as CDC. You know, the best way to treat air is to dilute it with fresh air, and that's what we're doing. We're bringing in as much fresh air as we possibly can. That's why it's sometimes a little bit louder in some of the classrooms, because of the amount of fresh air that we're bringing in. Also, of course, we have the MER 13 filters that are already in all of our ventilators. But the real problem with the portable air filter is that, and some of the ones that have been presented to us, is that they're really small and they don't turn the air over like the CDC recommends 3 to 4 times an hour. Some of the units that have been shared with us turn it over maybe once an hour and are really only for smaller rooms, as well as Amanda talked about that they use I don't know if I want to get in the weeds, if I'm getting in the weeds too much, but they use plasma and ionization systems that aren't even approved by the state education department. So we couldn't actually, we can't actually use them. It wouldn't meet our requirements. I mean, the other thing, Amanda touched on it, they're going to filter mold. The filter is going to trap mold and viruses and dust and allergens, and it is going to create a biohazard in the rooms. And I mean, we could probably go on and talk about why these portable filtration devices maybe don't fit with our existing system. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, I think we really understand the pitfalls of trying to use these portable ventilation systems or whatever.
Sure.
I really appreciate explaining that in such detail. However, in terms of just like, I guess, temperature control, it seems that a lot of these systemic solutions, obviously they take a long time. Great.
More than others, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that even though obviously a Band-Aid approach is far from ideal, in the meantime, I think it's still important for these kinds of more quick fixes are still available for teachers that so choose, and then these things can also once the school is fixed and we don't need them anymore, they can be used for other purposes. There are other places that need them, and so I think that it's still important that we do allocate at least some measure of funding to make that available.
Yeah, so we do, like, in the summer, I know in GNH it gets super hot, right? So it's like hot all the time. So like we purchased really large air conditioner units, right? That we have in the hallways. It's pretty loud, we don't put them in the classrooms. We have teachers, we actually have staff go up and open doors early in the morning. We'll open windows to catch that early morning coolness, right? So you're absolutely right, we will continue to do those things. Sort of, unfortunately, not glamorous, loud, Band-Aid approaches, we will continue to do that for sure.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Yeah?
Adam, a quick response, if I could. One thing that, as someone who teaches in education and was a teacher, it was always interesting to me the ways in which there were disconnects in communication between teachers, students, principals, parents, school board members. And I think there's sometimes this thought process as if everyone isn't trying to move in the exact same direction, right? As if folks aren't as invested in making sure our teachers are as comfortable, compensated, students are as comfortable. And so partly we're hearing is some of the fixes that folks would want are an impossibility. Like legally, you are not able to buy particular space heaters, right? Space heaters, especially in most classrooms, are a fire hazard. So, right, so trying to figure out what that balance is, and I appreciate that, the idea about sort of Band-Aid approaches, we need a fix immediately. That part I understand. So, and I think there's ways in which folks have been continue to try to make that happen as much as possible. You all know it because you're in it, right? I'm reminded as also a historian that we're talking about a building that is closing in on 65 years old that has never had the major sort of renovations that are about to happen. So trying to find that balance between systemic approaches that will hopefully fix things and the immediate to make it comfortable for folks to be able to learn. But I also feel just compelled to say that everyone wants that. No one wants our teachers to be uncomfortable, students to be uncomfortable. Staff. There you go.
There's always another opinion.
Right. And one last thing, and to Kelly's question, Kelly, when I was saying to our student reps to participate in our committees, it was not to avoid their questions. So the questions that were asked earlier will be addressed during the HR committee update. Will be addressed during the facilities committee update, which we just did it in part, and there'll be some more to that. So
No, I understood that, Sean. I just wanted to make sure that we answered them tonight. I think it's a question that's been circulating among them. I totally understood your statement, didn't think you were avoiding it. But I would like to thank you, Amanda and Dan, for addressing that. I've been getting a lot of emails about the heating issues personally, and the fact that, I mean, I know even at my workplace, I work in two separate places, one where it's freezing cold in a surgical unit where I want to put a blanket on the entire time I'm working. And then I go to the complete extreme where I walk into one of our break rooms and I feel like I'm going to pass out from heat. So, no, I appreciate the answer, and I appreciate you students for bringing that up and continuing to bring your concerns to the board.
And Amanda, just to wrap up the facilities committee update, we are going to go through all the committees in a second, but we will have a presentation regarding the capital projects and an opportunity to talk about a variety of projects next board meeting. Right?
Absolutely.
So.
And we all know we can't do it all, right, in the first couple of phases. There is so much to do. And so I'm going to be really humble when I come to you next time about the capital project. We can't get it all done, but we will do the best we can to address priorities as they arise.
Yeah, we'll touch base on it then. I heard something about water going into a pool or York Electric Hall.
I mean, I think we should wait.
We're not going to go there now.
That's
so
right. That's right. Let's wait.
Let's wait a couple
It's
weeks.
just too exciting.
I am going to anticipate some answers then. So anything else on the budget and
There's
timeline?
nothing else.
Right. Opportunity to talk about millions of dollars in the future.
That's right, that's right.
Okay, good.
Thank you all, I
Thank
really
you.
truly
Thanks.
appreciate it, and really, Dan and I, honestly, we will take any kinds of questions, host, go to whatever ASM looks like, we'll go there, we don't care. We're like, we'll go to 4 rooms, we'll figure it out, all right?
That's
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So, on to committee updates. Sean, we want to go through this? Good, yeah. So, we went through facilities, thankfully, since I'm involved with that. We will just go ahead and start with audit. And Rob and Chris are on audit. And we have 2 community members that are on the audit committee. The audit committee, as Sean points out, is the only committee that we are legally obligated to have as a district. And so I want to thank again Ann Reichland and Don Waddle. Don's been on the committee for a long time. Ann agreed to come on the committee last year, and so we look forward to seeing her tomorrow. It's the first audit committee meeting of 2022. There's 4 meetings throughout the year, and the audit committee reviews a variety of different audits. There's, Amanda, I lose track of how many times we're audited throughout the year, but it is several. Internal, external audits,
we're
external,
audited
internal,
Every time we send something up for payment, we're audited, every single time.
So audit committee will meet tomorrow night, and so we look forward to that. I assume that's via Zoom, and then all are invited. So look forward to, anyway. So how about we go on to curriculum innovation and strategic partnership committee. Eldred, I believe.
Thank you. Yes, feels like it's been a long time since we had a chance to say what we've been doing.
Exactly. Go ahead.
So, where are we? Seems like every couple of years we have to take an evolutionary shift in how we as a board think about curriculum. Because our executives keep pushing us forward, right? So I think those who have been on the curriculum committee the last couple of years can tell you that in Lily and Mary, we have done enough instructional rounds that we understand some really crucial things about how Dr. Brown is moving us forward in terms of teaching and learning. We've explored homogeneous math. We've explored the collapsing of certain honors classes and regents classes. We've explored social emotional learning opportunities from first grade up through the senior level in high school. We witnessed literacy, not just in classes about literacy, but in math and in science classes. So we know a lot, not as much as you all who sit there every day, but we know more about education and how it actually works in classrooms than you might think. But now we've reached another bridge where we need to take another evolutionary leap forward in our thinking as board members, because our executives are pushing us once again with this learning forward initiative. So we are rethinking how we're going to go about wrapping our minds around all the complexities in that plan. And I have posited to my colleagues that maybe it's time for us to take a K-12 approach. We'll start learning pre-K through 2, then we'll move on to 3 through 5, figure out what's happening at the middle school, and then swing back around to the high school. And in each situation, all those elements I just mentioned are going to be there. Anti-marginalization curriculum, social emotional learning, but the literacy implications. But we want to see it now in context. We want to hear from the kids in context. Obviously, young adults as we move into middle school and high school, but we've asked Dr. Brown to determine how he can get students and learners in front of us while we're doing this. Because we also know they've been trying to incorporate those voices into aspects of curriculum, but we haven't heard that yet as board members. So this is the next horizon. Hopefully we'll get back on it in our meeting in February, and we'll share what we learned with you. There'll be leaders and teachers sitting at this table, sharing what we learned with everyone. So thank you.
Thanks, Eldred. And Chris, we talked about budget already. Do you want to just do a quick update?
really quick update, we always cover all the expenditures and inter-district transfers of funds. And there's a lot of things we have to do at finance that are timely and state appropriated. But we've done a lot focusing on getting feedback from our fiscal advisors from 3+1 that are doing an excellent job for us. Also, just navigating, we always do an update on, excuse me, basically COVID related expenses and the shifts of this COVID world we're living in. And the crazy thing, it's additional expense. We didn't stop the regular expenses, but now you add the COVID expenses on top of that. And it seems like it's a constantly shifting landscape with that. There's always something new that comes up that wasn't there 3 months ago. So we constantly are updating that. And really, that's it. But Amanda really spoke to it earlier. We are getting into budget formulation season. So moving forward, we will be getting updates from all of our directors, building leaders on what they have to face for the upcoming fiscal year and what that budget formation looks like. And that's what's going on in finance.
Thank you, Chris. And Moira, correct? HR.
I'll be quick too. I already spoke a little about HR. So I'm the chair of the HR committee, and the other members are Chris Malcolm and Nicole Save. We meet, and it's all virtual at this point. We meet on the first Tuesday of the month at 6:30, following the policy committee meeting. Every once in a while, the policy committee is really efficient and ends early, and sometimes we end up starting HR a little bit earlier. As I said before, one of the things particularly this year that we've just spent a lot of time on is getting updates and asking questions about our staffing needs and issues of recruitment and retention. We do a lot of brainstorming. Gladira Sims, who is what is Gladira's title right now?
Assistant Director of HR.
Right. She just got an upgrade in her title. She's Assistant Director of Human Resources. And so she's leading the work on recruitment and retention. And so she gives us very regular updates on what's happening there. And also one of the things that has been challenging, which also impacts recruitment, is just short-handedness in the HR department. We have been, the district has reorganized some of the staffing and has increased staffing. We are going to be hiring 2 more administrative assistants in the HR department, which can really help with lag time in onboarding new hires. And one thing that the HR committee has been doing for the last 5 years or so is that each year we have several meetings where the principals come and talk to us about their untenured teachers and give us, a sense of who these people are, because ultimately we have to officially approve tenure. And it's very uncomfortable when we know nothing about the person except for what their supervisor is writing in requesting that they be granted tenure. So our effort in having these conversations with principals, it's been really fruitful because I think it's asked the principals to really think about what they're seeing with their teachers, and what their teachers need to be the best that they can be. And then we're in a position as the board to help them principals figure out, how do we give this teacher, who's new to the district, the support that they need to be, a outstanding member of our faculty. So we're about to start those meetings, in March. We'll have at least 2 meetings probably to have those discussions with principals.
Thanks, Mark. Legislative advocacy. I'm looking for what that word, Sean. Eldred or Kelly?
I'll take a shot at it, and this is gonna be brief.
That's okay.
Um,
That means it's gonna be long.
Really? That's okay.
You promise?
Everybody count the ten.
You wanna Amanda just to talk to that, or?
I don't know, we can go around, man.
What?
As I understand it, we've identified some priorities of what we're gonna work on, and the first is trying to figure out how the state can help ourselves by better managing the certification process. When Bob and Adair and our HR folks try to bring people in from out of state for other qualifications, because everybody's looking for work, it's difficult for us because they have to go through certain additional numbers of hoops to get certification. The good news, a law that we had worked on finally got passed, which allows our nurses to access the state's database, which saves untold hours. See Gary smile on the background in terms of inputting vaccinations and keeping us up to date with all of the things required by COVID, et cetera, et cetera. That's all I have, because there are other things I don't remember. Amanda, is there something else that we should be working on that you know about?
Yeah,
All right, done.
Well, you got us a new governor, isn't that what, didn't you guys do that? No.
Say it again.
You got us a new governor.
Hey, we do what we can. We do what we can. What people can.
I somehow it happened, I thought you guys did it. It's been a long few weeks. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, before I get to policy, I will give a shout out to our Legislative Advocacy Committee. As Eldred mentioned, this new law was passed throughout all of New York State, and it was initiated by the folks here in Ithaca. So this is an example on which, so here's an example where we're having a statewide impact for nurses across the state and for our health professionals. So that was phenomenal work. I know folks worked hard on that. It was a day of celebration for us. On the policy committee, there are 2 things we're working on. One is a subset. It's the Code of Conduct Advisory Committee. We have been trying to rewrite the Code of Conduct since I believe our first meeting was February of 2020. And as you can imagine, it was quickly disrupted through COVID. We are trying to implement as much of a restorative justice approach as possible. A draft will be available to our community hopefully within 2 months. We're expecting additional feedback, dialogue, conversation, and we want this document to be as student-centered as possible. Students have been giving us feedback. We're a part of the writing committee, as we're teachers, principals, substitute teachers, community members. So there's more coming up on that pretty soon. We're working with a graphic designer to design a version of it so folks can take a look at it. The next update, and this is my last update, is a direct result of our student reps pushing us to ask different questions, to realize that our policies around sexual harassment and Title IX are beyond outdated. Every time there's a new federal administration, there's usually a shift and change in Title IX protocols. For example, our sexual harassment of employees policy was last updated in 1984. That's not a joke. I wish it was. I wish, right? We are going in order, so it's the 9000 series, so it takes us a while to get to the 9000 series. And our policies around students were last updated in 2009. So Lily, thank you so much. We're going to be addressing this on Tuesday, at least a beginning conversation for our Title IX policies on Tuesday, February 1st will be the first time that the policy committee begins to explore this. What we normally do is do sort of, big ideas about where we're gonna head, and then we have to finalize the language, because oftentimes our policies could end up in court, and so how we phrase any particular sentence becomes extremely important. And so we'll start big and then work our way down to the very specifics about how we can provide as much protection and affirmation for folks as we possibly can. So that's where we're headed with the policy committee.
Sean, can I just add something to that? In walking around the schools, I've seen these posters. I think I've seen them in the gym. I know I've seen them in other places where we list a whole series of steps. If a young person feels that they've been violated or someone they know, and hopefully you guys have seen those too. So it's not without any action, and those are fairly updated where our policies may not be. So we've taken that step at least.
I want to send a shout out to students because they're actually the ones who created the poster.
Yep.
LECS students were working on it through their committee structure in order to put that together about 2 or 3 years ago. And yeah, nice job. And then IHS students have added to it and shifted to it. Mary Grover has done a great job while I was out. She's moved Title IX forward super far in a very short amount of time in collaboration with students. So, I think it's a group effort to really protect and to support our students and our staff to make sure that we have as safe an environment as possible.
My apologies, I forgot, Mary. Thank you for you and I have been in dialogue as well, so thank you for your work.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Mary. Thanks, Lily, and Sean. There's still 2 policies on this agenda.
There are 2 policies. Both of these policies were on a previous agenda where we actually did meet. We did not go over these policies because we did not include the language, but we want to make sure folks had them. The first policy is policy 1400, public comments and complaints to the board. This is up for a first reading, and you can see the language that is there. Basically what we did was update the process of how complaints are received, and much more importantly, how they're addressed. It just is a change of titles more than it is a change of process, but that's where policy 1400 is.
And a change of formatting to make it clearer in a visual way.
It is amazing when you have an English teacher on the committee who can tell you what format is better to read. So thank you for that part as well.
Where to put the comments.
That's right. So I move policy 1400, public comment and complaints to the Board of Education for a first reading.
Second.
By Moira. Any other questions other than, gee, I thought we were heading to the 9,000s and this is a 1,400. We'll get there, Sean. Coming back around on this. Not hearing anything, so we just need to vote on this. Tricia, please.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Kelly Evans,
Yes.
Dawn Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris.
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Patricia Wazelman.
Yes.
Pat, thank you, everyone. And Sean, one more.
Yes, the next policy is policy 1230, public participation at board meetings. This is a policy that we already have voted on for a first reading. I went back to the policy committee to see if there were any changes and or recommendations. There were none from the previous meeting. There were none during our policy committee. And so as it is, I move policy 1230, public participation at board meetings for a second reading and adoption this evening.
Second.
Second by Moira. So any other comments? Hearing none. I didn't give too long, but not hearing any. Tricia, go ahead, please.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Kelly Evans,
Yes.
Dawn Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris.
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Patricia Wazelman.
Yes.
Thank you all. Dr. Brown, anyone, students, anything else tonight? Any other items? I can't tell what the weather's doing, Dr. Brown, so
It's cold.
no announcements right now. It's cold. Upcoming dates of importance, so I don't know, Thursday at, community conversation, Thursday at?
Hugo Heights, 5:30.
Hugo Heights, 5:30.
Audit tomorrow?
Audit tomorrow, well, that just goes without saying that that is a
So excited.
meeting of importance. That it
It'll be
is.
short.
And policy and HR next Tuesday.
Got it. Well, everyone, I think we're done, and enjoy the evening, and we are adjourned.